This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
Your license is expired. Words we never want to hear from a law enforcement officer, even if that just applies to your fishing license. Well, as of March 1st, it's time to renew. We go inside outdoors to find out more about what you need to know before you go when you buy your next hunting or fishing license. Fishing, joint, combo, senior, disabled, out of state, we cover them all this week on Kentucky Afield Radio.
It's time to register for Kentucky's elk hunts. This is Tim Farmer. The Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central and the only place to enter this year's draw. Elk hunting in Old Kentucky. Take it from me, there's nothing like it. 1,000 names will be drawn, and with the Pick 2 option, you gotta like your odds. The deadline is midnight, April 30th. The Kentucky Elk Draw. Enter at fw.ky.gov. Again, fw.ky.gov.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear, flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. We are talking about licenses that you will need if you want to hunt and fish. And I am in the studio today with Brian Clark, who's with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife's Public Affairs Division, Brenda Ward-Hill, who sells licenses at every major event you can imagine, boat shows, the state fair, the list goes on, and Richard Skaggs, who is a captain, conservation officer. Welcome, all three of you, to Kentucky Afield.
Thank you.
We want to talk about licenses because March 1st is that magical date that says the license you've been using for the last year is now expired, and it's time to get a new one. For most folks, I bet you could name on one hand the basic licenses. And this is just a start. Hunting, fishing, or a combination license. And then after that, some other ones start to creep in, such as a disability license, a senior license, an out-of-state license, a 3-day, a trout stamp, a waterfowl stamp. And you find that this list can get pretty lengthy. So it helps to know what you need to know before you go.
It is lengthy. And we have actually a published list in each of our hunting or fishing and boating guides. So folks can look at that in those guides and then also online under our license tab. So we do have a lot of different offerings depending on what people want to do, if they just want to fish or just want to hunt, or if they would want to do a combination thereof. A senior license, which is kind of an all-inclusive combination type license for people who are 65 and over. We have youth licenses for people who are 12 to 15 for hunting and particular types of hunting. So we do have a pretty long list. It is available in our guides.
Charlie, you mentioned that the chart. That's available online and in our hunting guides. And it's real important that people look at the hunting guide, look online, determine what they're going to do, and then make sure that they have that proper license, because a trout permit in one area may only be required if you keep trout, but if you go below the Cumberland tailwaters, you have to have that trout permit. So it's important that you pick up the hunting and fishing guides or look online and make sure that you determine what you need.
So the guide to which you speak is published by the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife online, and you can pick it up wherever you buy a hunting and fishing license or your lures or bullets or anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And the name of the guide is, so that all will know?
The Kentucky Hunting and Trapping Guide, or the Boating and Fishing Guide that we publish annually. And you can get online, you can click, and it'll take you right to the site. The laws have changed over years. For example, a trapping license. There was a time when a landowner wasn't required to buy the trapping license. Now, everybody who traps is required to have a trapping license. Some of the trout permits areas used to, Cumberland tailwater, you didn't have to have that trout permit to be there, but now you do. So you need to pick up those guides and be up to date on the information, because it is the hunter's or the fisher's responsibility to know what the law is.
And if you can't find it online, or if one of your local stores are out of them, you can always call our 1-800 number.
What is that?
At headquarters. It is 1-800-858-1549.
1-800-858-1549.
That's correct. And we'd be happy to send you out a copy of those guides.
I've heard bandied about around 1 million licenses are sold every year in this state.
Yeah, about 570,000 some odd fishing license, about 300,000 hunting licenses total. Those numbers fluctuate up and down, and that's one of the problems that we've had with, like, the fishermen. Maybe you don't fish one year and you decide not to buy them, and so those numbers fluctuate a little bit. And then you also got the Sportsman license and a mix of licenses, and so the numbers go up and down, but the generally somewhere around 1 million licenses.
And that Sportsman's license is something that we do want to get into, because that is the value of the year, if there ever was one. More easy stuff. Who needs a license? Just generally speaking, who needs a license in Kentucky?
For a hunting license, juniors 12 to 15, they need a hunting license. Anyone under 12 doesn't have to have a license, but they must be accompanied by an adult when hunting. 16 years old and above, you need a fishing license. Landowners, their dependent children, and spouses hunting on their own lands or fishing on their own lands are not required to have a license. Tenants who live and work on the lands are not required to have a hunting or fishing license, but it's only on those lands that they live on, and it only includes lands that they work. So if you're just renting a house on a farm, that doesn't qualify. So you are required to have a hunting or fishing license.
Brian, Brenda, I was expecting some simple answer like, if you're 16 or over and you want to hunt or fish. That is not the answer, is it?
No.
Captain? It's not that at all.
No, but that's why you really need to look at your guide and make sure that you're up to date on the laws.
Can you give a license as a gift?
Well, what you can do is you can actually purchase a gift card for someone, and then they can go online and purchase whatever license that they need.
If you buy it online, you do need to have some particular information. Is it a driver's license, social security number? What is necessary online?
Right. You need to know their social security number and their date of birth, and then, of course, their address. If
you wanted to give one, let's say, to a nephew who was 5 and didn't need one, but you wanted to make him feel like a real superstar when he went out with his pole, do you still need to know his social security number?
Yes, you still need to know his social and date of birth.
Okay, remember this. Just like a business license or driver's license, this, your hunting and fishing license, is a government-issued legal document that authorizes you to do this activity. A social security number is integral to getting that license. Your buddy's coming in from out of state, you're going to spend the weekend fishing. You're going to buy his license just because you're a great guy and you can't wait for him to come. One thing you don't have is his social security number. So if that's for yourself or for a friend or for the kid next door, if you want to buy a hunting or fishing license in Kentucky, you need a social security number. Now, there are a couple of exceptions. If you're Amish or if you're from out of the country. In that case, there is a Fish and Wildlife process. You just need to contact the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they will make sure they take care of you. Brian, what else?
Yeah, the only other alternative, as Brenda mentioned, is you can buy an online gift certificate for that person and then present them with the gift certificate, and they have a credit they can use online then to purchase a license with.
Online purchases. That leads me to believe that it sounds like if I were out there and did not have my license, there may be an electronic backup of it.
There is an electronic backup of your license, but remember, officers don't always have access to be able to verify that, so you are required to carry proof of your license. If you buy it on the internet, you're required to carry the number that they give you and your ID. If you buy it over the phone, they'll mail you a license, but in the meantime, you must have that authorization number and your ID with you. You certainly, if you buy it at the a regular license at the clerk's office or one of the vendors across the state, you need to carry that license with you, and you need to fill it out and sign it. There are backup copies of your license that you can purchase to replace your license, but you need to carry proof that you bought it, because we can't always verify that in the field.
That's true. Yeah, out in the field there are not many cell towers everywhere you go.
Exactly.
But we want to talk more about hunting and fishing licenses here in the new license year for 2013/14 when we come back. Want to find out a little bit more about the Sportsman's license. Stay with us. My name is Charlie Baglin, and we will be back with more on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Kentucky Afield Radio, and my name is Charlie Baglin, and we're talking about a Happy New Year of sorts. I know that was a couple months ago, January 1, but March 1st is the new license year if you like to hunt, fish, or trap. I have a distinguished panel in front of me, and they are Brian Clark and Brenda Ward-Hill, both with the Public Affairs Division of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Conservation Officer Captain Richard Skaggs. Brenda, I'm looking at you. You have an interesting position. While a lot of people will go to buy their hunting and fishing licenses, well, at a store, you sell them at boat shows. I'm curious about the feedback that you are getting towards some of those licenses, including the Sportsman's license. And we'll get to that, I promise, in a minute. But first, during the break, Brian, you had brought up something about you could reprint your license online.
That's right. It's a free service, so if anyone has purchased a license, they can go to our website, which is FW, F as in fish and W as in wildlife, fw.ky.gov, and look under the license tab, which is on our homepage, and then look for reprint your license. And that again, that's free service. You can do it anytime, as many times as you need to. If you get your license wet or you lose it or whatever, that's free to all license buyers.
And what if I bought my license at a store?
You still would be in the system, so you still can do that.
Still in the system. That's something relatively new. How many years has that been an option for licensed buyers?
I think maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, about
fairly new.
Because there was a day that if you lost it, if it went downstream, I assume you're just out of luck.
You have to go back and pay a reduced fee, but maybe like a $5 handling fee for that. And so now that's a value-added opportunity for licensed buyers.
Captain Skaggs, you were talking about, there's exceptions to every rule.
Well, the law requires that if you're even assisting someone to take wildlife, that you have those licenses too. But if you're not actively engaged in the actual taking of wildlife, then you could be exempt. If you want to take your children fishing, you can take your children fishing, as long as you're not the one actually doing the fishing. It's all right to assist them, to hold the pole, to bait the hook, to give them a hand, and we encourage you to do that. We check a lot of people, a lot of parents who just maybe don't have the time to fish, but they take their kids out to a park or something, and they take the kids fishing, and they have a good time, and then the next week they will go buy their license. But, there is an exception if you're calling a turkey for someone. As long as you don't have the shotgun, you're not the one taking the turkey, then you're fine without a license.
Another example might be someone who's, helping a friend or a neighbor drag a deer, or maybe going elk hunting, helping retrieve an elk.
Hunting, fishing, combo, joint. There are a lot of different licenses out there to have, and commonly somebody will have a fishing or a hunting or a combination of those two. There are, of course, permits that have to come into this, federal duck stamp. The list starts to get a little bit lengthy. There is one license out there that takes into account, I'm going to say 99% of all these things, and it's called a Sportsman's license. And Brenda, I'm going to turn back to you because I want to know, if you're out at the Kentucky State Fair, or you're at a boating show or an archery trade show and you're selling licenses, is that at all a popular license that is sold?
It is, because it does include all of your license, hunting, fishing, and all your statewide permits. Now, it does not include your federal duck stamp, but other than that, it includes all your license and all your permits. So turkey, deer permits, trout permit. So it's a great savings if you do all those to purchase your Sportsman's license.
So again, let's just go down the list that a sportsman's license does cover. Hunting, fishing, the permits you need for spring and fall turkey.
Correct.
The tags you need for deer hunting.
Right. The only thing that doesn't also include is going to be your additional bonus deer permits. So you would have to purchase that permit.
And the one thing it doesn't do is
the federal duck stamp. And you would have to purchase that at post office.
I believe that's the only way. You can order them online, but they have to mail them to you, and so you have to have them in your possession before you can waterfowl hunt. That's duck and goose hunt.
And the price of a sportsman's license, $95.
$95, right.
Now, if you were to go out and spend the money to buy all these things separately, what would you spend?
I believe it's $145, which is about a 35% savings.
Yeah, you saved a third.
Right.
$50. That's not a bad deal.
It's a very good deal.
Now, here we are in March, and we're looking ahead to turkey season. And if you are going to hunt turkey, you're going to hunt deer in the fall, and hunt turkey in the fall. But the earlier you buy that, the better value it is.
That's correct, because it's got your spring turkey in there, too. So the earlier you purchase it, the more you're going to save.
Captain Skaggs, your career has been in wildlife law enforcement, patrolling the woods and waters of this Commonwealth. And you come across a lot of people there. Not just men, women, children. A lot of people in this Commonwealth enjoy hunting and fishing. They may not pursue every species in the book, but I have a feeling with this one license there is money to be saved.
Even if you don't do every activity, but if you deer hunt, turkey hunt, buy your license, then you decide to go dove hunting, which you get your state waterfowl permit, which covers your migratory bird. Migratory bird alone is $10. Waterfowl permit is $15. So if you add those up, you've saved money too. So you don't have to do everything that it allows you to do to save money. Just if you look at the chart, I will guarantee you, if you deer and turkey hunt, you save money.
So it sounds to me like, even though you may not save, you will save time, you'll save money, you'll save potentially some frustration.
Think about this. Say you don't want to buy your trout permit because you're not a regular trout fisherman, but all of a sudden you decide to go someplace where they've stocked trout or trout exist, and you catch a big 7-pound brown trout. Now, you didn't buy your trout permit, so you can't keep it. But now, if you have that sportsman's license, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, that's good.
Take it on with you.
So the trout stamp is included in the sportsman's license.
Right.
So again, you were covered. Here's a quick question. I was looking through the disability license. The senior disability licenses allow qualified residents to perform any act authorized by either a hunting or a fishing license, or to take trout, deer, turkey, waterfowl, or other migratory game birds without additional state permits. Basically, is that what is kind of referred to as the $5 license?
Right. A lot of folks, it's actually a sportsman's license, so the disability license will get everything that the sportsman's license will also get, along with the senior license. So if you're 65 and over, you can also purchase your senior license for $5. The only difference with your disability license and your senior license is you get even one other step better than the sportsman's license. That also includes your additional bonus deer tags.
For $5.
For $5.
You absolutely cannot beat that. You can't beat that with a stick.
And I had the fortunate, and I'm showing my age, I was around when we used to offer lifetime license to people over 65, so I was at the department when that changed. And some of the older people thought that they should have a lifetime license, but the thing about it is, if they deer hunted, if they fished for trout, if they turkey hunted, they had to buy those additional permits. Mm-hmm. So now they get everything for $5 versus used to they had to buy all those additional permits. So it's a good deal for the seniors, and it also helps the department with matching funds.
So that we know, a sportsman's license that we were just raving about is also available to seniors instead of paying $95 for $5.
That's right.
At what age do you become a senior?
65.
65.
Right.
Now, Charlie, we do have sportsmen and women that In fact, I have some friends this way. We may all, but they continue to buy their regular price license even after age 65 because they want to contribute to what the department does on a larger scale. And so while it's certainly legal and fine for folks to get that $5 license if they're eligible, they may also contribute more, purchase a regular price license to contribute to the mission of the agency. And we are experiencing right now, because of the baby boomers, a significant move of folks that are below 65 into that age category. And so we're losing regular license customers to the tune of about 4 or 5% a year into that senior category. And so we're losing a large amount of revenue. And so folks are able, if they're able, we encourage them, if they want to buy a regular price license and continue to help us to stock fish and keep officers on the ground or on the water, keep the wildlife restoration programs going and all the rest.
The statement, sportsmen pay for conservation. That's sportsmen, sportswomen, kids. If you buy a license, you pay for conservation. That's hunting, fishing, wildlife, sport fisheries. It's amazing how the budgets of state fish and wildlife agencies are affected by the sale of licenses, and we will get into that in our next half hour. We got to go now to a break. But when we come back, Richard, I'd like to know what, I don't want to call them excuses, but what responses do you get from people when you say, I need to see your license, and they may not have it, or they may have the wrong one. So we'll get into that in our next half hour. We'll be back with more talking about licenses on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Baglett on Kentucky Afield Radio. We have a fishing report just ahead. Brian, my hat's off to you and the boys at the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife for holding license prices so consistently the same.
Yes, we typically adjust license fees and the structure of those sometimes on about a 5 to 7 year cycle, and we really did work hard to try to keep as many fees as possible the same. And our basic licenses for residents have all remained the same. Our hunting license, fishing license, trapping license, the senior and disabled license, and also our sportsman's license are all staying the same prices this next year.
But there's a new license available this year online only.
Yes, it's a 3-year fishing license, and there's a discount for purchasing that online for a 3-year period. So instead of being $20 per year, totaling $60, it would be $55 for those 3 years if purchased online.
We will have more with Brian and the panel, but first, our fishing report.
This is Tom with your fishing report from the Northeast. The majority of our reservoirs are still too cold for most of our popular fish species. For those of you unwilling to wait a few more weeks, there are some good opportunities out there right now. Anglers have been taking those warmer days and hitting up the Licking River at the Cave Run Lake Dam for muskie. Remember to fish a little slower. These cold-blooded animals are just starting to get some blood pumping really good. Other than that, our transportation section has been trying to catch up with our rainbow trout stockings in our lakes. Keep posted on when the lakes are being stocked on our website. This is changing daily as areas open up. The 1st of March, we'll see the first stockings of rainbow trout in our streams. Streams to be stocked include Middle Fork of the Red River and East Fork of Indian Creek. These are still under the delayed harvest regulation, but it can still be a lot of fun for some catch and release fishing. If you head out, good luck and stay safe.
Hi, this is Kevin Fry with your Eastern Area Fisheries Report. Rainbow trout are being stocked in area lakes at present. High Splint and Kingdom Come lakes in Harlan County were stocked this past week. Paintsville Lake, Martin County Reservoir at the water plant, and Milo Lake in Martin County are scheduled to be stocked the first week of March with rainbow trout. Crappie have been near shoreline or submerged brush in 6 to 7 foot of water or less in most area lakes. Larger fish are being caught sporadically on jigs. Some of the best reports for numbers of crappie caught and harvested were coming from Fish Trap Lake. At Fish Trap, jig fishing was working, and quite a few anglers taking 25 to 30 fish a trip. If the lake level stays consistent at Buckhorn Lake, anglers have good opportunity for muskie and shallow water in the lower lake near the dam.
Hi, this is Eric Cummins with your Southwest Kentucky Fishing Report. Barren River Lake bass are best on sun-drenched banks or transition areas, and that can be light to shade or rock to clay, with medium crankbaits and grubs in about 10 to 20 foot of water. Barren River tailwater is slow due to high discharge from the lake. Green River Lake crappie have been fair near brush piles or structure in 10 to 20 foot of water. Bass have been fair on your rocky, sunny banks in 10 to 20 foot of water with medium crankbaits, jerkbaits, or grubs. Muskie have been fair with spinners, jerkbaits, or crankbaits in your warmer coves or near the cove mouths. Also, deeper water areas near the shallow flats have been good. As always, good luck and good fishing, and be sure you wear your life jacket.
Charlie Baglin on Kentucky Afield Radio, and still to come, I will ask Captain Skaggs common excuses he hears while on patrol in the woods and on the water. He's grinning right now. Back with more after the break.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
Into our second half hour with my guest talking about the licenses you will need to hunt and fish and trap in Kentucky. We have a new license year upon us, and March 1st starts that new license year. Whatever you had in your pocket is now expired. Captain Skaggs, tell me, what part of the state do you serve on patrol?
I think I've issued citations in 37 counties.
That's a lot. Now, you don't go out there with, I want to write a citation today. But every now and then, you have to do it. Let's say I'm out there, and you come up to me, and I have no fishing license at all. What kind of responses do you get from people with improper license? Usually, fishing and hunting, there is no excuse. Generally, people just say, well, I didn't get it. But sometimes, like migratory bird permits, they'll say, the guy at Walmart told me, or the clerk said, and you have to explain that it's your responsibility to know what type of license you have to have for the event. Now, like the migratory bird permit, that comes up often in dove season. You know, I don't have the dove permit because, well, like we discussed in earlier segments, you know, we've got it on the website, we've got it in the hunting guides, we've got clear directions that tell you what you need. So I really encourage people not to have to come up with an excuse when we check them, but you know, a few things that people do that can really get them in trouble is they try to borrow other people's licenses. Maybe they went camping and they decided that they were going to fish, but before they came there, they weren't going to. Well, they grab somebody else's paper license and they go to the bank with that license. Two people can be in trouble there. The person who gave them the license to use and the person using that license. And fines have went up. With court costs, you know, you could be looking at something over $200 for those kinds of violations. And, you know, we have some for non-resident landowners. They want to come down and hunt, and we're glad to have them, but you have to be a resident of one state. You can't live in Ohio and own land in Ohio and claim residency there, and then come down and hunt on a resident or fish on a resident license in Kentucky. Sometimes people bring up, well, you know, we pay property taxes, but again, you know, sportsmen pay for conservation. This is, you know, license sales is what protects the ecology in this state. It's not only the game species and the fish that we love to catch, it's all the other little critters out there that make life livable, right, that you're supporting. So that's why you're not going to get a lot of breaks on license and permits. I mean, you either have them or you don't. Well, maybe is there a gray area? And let's just say someone is duck hunting and you need 2 permits beyond your license, correct? Yes. You need the state waterfowl permit and a federal duck stamp. Is there any slack at all ever given? I did not know. Is ignorance to the law ever going to win you a fight in this? No. Waterfowl hunting, that is a specialized type of hunting. And it's not something that you just pick up a gun one day and you go off for yourself and do. You go with somebody that knows, okay? That's a federal violation not to have your federal duck stamp. So, you know, that's a pretty serious
offense by federal law, and I really don't feel that there is a legitimate excuse. I mean, if you're out in a blind trying to shoot at ducks, then you know that you need a waterfowl permit.
I left my fishing license in my other pants or in my other tackle box. In that case,
if possible, we'll try to verify your license for you. Most officers will. Do not depend on that. You know, as we discussed in earlier segments, we don't always have the capability to do that. You know, unfortunately, I'd like to trust everyone, but in my business, we find out that we're not always told the truth. So if we can't verify the information, then you're subject to a citation.
You had mentioned a fine of $200. What commonly is the fine for just something simple? I don't have my fishing license.
It's a $50 fine, but there's a court cost associated that differs with the counties. Different counties can set their own court cost, but you do need to know that it's just not a $50 gamble. It could be a $200 to a $250, even $275 gamble, depending on the county you're in. So you're much better off to go ahead and buy those licenses. I've had people say, well, clerk will let me turn those in, like car registration. Well, you might do that once. You go in the next time and a different judge is on the bench that week, or somebody's setting a new rule, and you're going to find out that you're going to end up having to pay the full amount. So you're better off to get them to begin with. Another thing I'd mention, that I've had occasionally people who have taken off. They've seen me coming around the bank, and they've taken off and tried to run at Walmart and buy those licenses. You have to have that license before you perform the act. And I've had people come back to me, and I knew they'd left. I knew where they went to. It was over in Fayette County, and we can look at the license number, and it gives us the exact time that you purchased those licenses. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the best way to do it is don't try to beat the system. Just go ahead and fund conservation and buy your license to start with.
And we talk about Walmart. They're certainly a big partner of ours, Kmart, you name it. But there are a lot of specialty shops out there, the archery store, the sporting goods store that sell licenses. Now, let me just ask you, are they supposed to know exactly what I need, or are they just simply a vendor?
They are a vendor. It is not the vendor's responsibility to tell you what license you need to purchase. It's your responsibility to order the correct license, and we tell our vendors that. They're a vendor. They're not an employee of the department.
Right.
They're not the official.
So they are off the hook.
They're off the hook.
We were talking about license dollars, and it is time to buy a new one, and when you do this, it not only gets you the opportunity to hunt and fish legally, law-abiding, it is the way that the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife and Departments of Fish and Wildlife nationwide are funded. I'm looking at Brian, I'm looking at Brenda, because they're shaking their heads yes. If we sell a license for $20, how does that $20 turn into more money to fund conservation in this state?
We take that $20 and then apply for grants, and most typically we obtain federal grant dollars through a program that was set up 75 years or so ago called the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. It's a tremendously successful program that operates basically by having an excise tax on hunting and fishing equipment. That excise tax money, it's a small fee that goes to manufacturers and importers of hunting and fishing equipment. Those dollars go into a pool and then are dispersed or spread out to the states based on a couple of factors: license sales in the states and then also land area. Generally, it's based on those two things. So the more licenses we sell, the more federal grant dollars we can bring back to Kentucky for wildlife restoration and fisheries management. All those things we match, or we obtain federal grant money using our fishing and hunting licenses as match. Probably get on average between $5 and $10 for every hunting or fishing license we sell from federal grant funds. So we multiply our dollars out as a whole. Looking at the department's budget, we have about half or a little more of our department revenue, our funding, from license sales, and then we get another probably 30 to 40% from federal grants.
And you know, Charlie, a lot of folks don't know this, but we do not receive any other general state funds. Everything that we bring in is literally from the sports men and women. Yeah.
My sales taxes don't help you.
Right. We do not receive any general funds.
So these hunting licenses, fishing licenses are important, very much so.
Absolutely. So what you said earlier in the show, that these things pay for conservation, they really do. Hunting and fishing licenses drive what we do, the services we're able to provide, and the resources that we have, which are outstanding in Kentucky.
Perception is reality. That licenses pay for the biologists, the conservation officers, the people that go to your school to teach you conservation lessons if you're in 4th, 5th, 6th grades, and pay for conservation camps. But the perception is, no, state taxes pay for you. How can you combat that?
That's a tough one, because even sportsmen, even hunters and anglers, a large percentage of them believe that we're getting state tax dollars as well. And so we try to educate folks, just to let folks know, hey, look, we are funded by hunting and fishing license and related dollars. And without those funds, we simply can't operate. In years when we have, for example, in 2011, we had a really tough year license-wise for fishing. That was because of a lot of rain, a lot of flooding in the spring when we sell most of our fishing licenses. And we're just now rebounding from that. But, because we don't have a buffer in state taxes or other means, we have to keep our belt really tight.
I've had people actually go ahead and buy their sportsman's license or hunting and fishing license, even though they don't get out there and they may not hunt or fish. But they get out there in other ways and enjoy wildlife, whether it be wildlife watching, bird watching, that sort of thing. So they go ahead and they support it by purchasing a license, even though they're not going to use it.
You don't have to be a hunter or angler to buy a license. And it's a great way to invest in the wildlife and fish resources we have. Hey, we purchase land that anybody can use for bird watching, for hiking, nature watching. Some of the areas, even you can go and, ride your bike. You can, walk. You can geocache. There's all kinds of things you can do on our lands and waters. You can boat. You don't have to necessarily be an angler. Take a canoe out on them or whatever. So please, support us if you value fish and wildlife conservation in Kentucky. We're pretty much it. So we encourage people to participate, as Brenda said.
We'll want to try to summarize a lot of the things we've been talking about in the past hour. When we come back, we've got a short piece before the top of the hour, so please, can you stay with us?
Yep.
We'll be back to talk about more about hunting and fishing licenses. It's a new year, the new license year in Kentucky, on Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back with our last segment. We're talking with Captain Richard Skaggs, Conservation Officer with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, along with Brian Clark with the Division of Public Affairs and Brenda Ward-Hill, also with the Kentucky Division of Public Affairs. And I have some interesting statistics, and Denise Babinger gave me these, and she's in charge of that program. She'll tell me that 12% of our hunters are coming in from out of state, 25% of our fishermen. So suffice it to say, we have a lot of visitation from our surrounding states, and we welcome one and all. I say one and all. How does that apply, Captain Skaggs? Can anyone come here as long as they buy the license to take advantage of the resource?
Anyone can come here and fish as long as they buy their license.
A 1-day, a 7-day, and a 15-day non-resident fishing, a non-resident annual hunting license, as well as a 1-day and a 5-day non-resident hunting license. And I know you personally have taken advantage of these from other states.
I fish Florida, and it can cost you a little bit with the salt water and the fresh water and the differences in licenses. So, anyone can come here and fish. Now, we have reciprocal agreements. A lot of my area covers the Ohio River. An Ohio resident can fish the main stem on an Ohio license. Kentuckian can fish on a Kentucky license. You can't go up in the tributaries or the embayments, where you're clearly up in the other state. But those are some exceptions to being having to have a non-resident license. But basically, if you're inland and you're not a resident of this state, then you need to buy a non-resident hunting or fishing license.
So a reciprocal agreement means that I can fish on a certain body of water. If, let's say, I am an Ohio resident, I can fish virtually Kentucky water with my Ohio license as long as we share the water.
As long as we share the water, and as long as we have that reciprocal agreement. We have some on Dale Hollow Lake with Tennessee. We've got reciprocal agreements with Illinois and concerning the Ohio River. So all adjoining waters that we share, we've tried to make a reciprocal agreement among the departments on exactly what the line is. But generally, you can't go up into another state's embayments or tributaries without that type of license.
I would imagine Kentucky and Barkley Lakes would surely be among them.
Yes, Kentucky, Barkley. We have reciprocal agreements with Tennessee there on some areas. But now, again, when you get clearly up into the other state, generally, you need to have that license.
I am going to presume that the vast majority, and let's go as far as say, I'm going to say 100% of the people want to be safe and legal, law-abiding hunters and fishermen, whoever they may be. And if that's in Kentucky, that's great. If you go into Colorado and do the same, make sure you follow their rules, buy the licenses, show them, those landowners, the same respect.
Yeah, and having hunted and fished out of state, you'll find that the rules are very similar, but every state, they have a place to go and look up the regs. Just about every state that I've been to has a regulation book. When you buy your license, they'll hand it to you and say, here's the type of license you need, and we do the same. So it's important that you show those courtesy and know it's your responsibility to know.
So the place to go to look to know is where? Anybody chime in?
Again, in the guide, in the hunting and fishing guide or the boating guide. So
the Kentucky Hunting and Fishing or Boating Guide.
Right.
And that can be found online. What is the web address?
It's fw.ky.gov.
fw.ky.gov.
Or someone could just Google Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Department, and they'd get, I'm sure our homepage would be one of the top picks there.
If you wanted to give us a call, what's the number?
It is 1-800-858-1549.
Repeat that.
Sure, it's 1-800-858-1549.
It's time to buy a new hunting and fishing license. Turkey season's coming up. The Sportsman's license, certainly a good alternative. If you're a senior license holder or a disabled license holder, then that is a $5 license. I guess could we spend just a quick minute on disabled licenses? We have not really gone there. But what do you need to qualify for a disabled license?
What you would have to do is, all the directions are, of course, in our guides. But for Social Security, you would go to your local Social Security office and have them give you a letter that is stating that you are disabled, your date of birth, your address. Then you would mail that to the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. What we do then is we turn around and we give you what we call a green card. And that will have your disability number on that card. You take that card anywhere that sells hunting and fishing license, and you can purchase your license for $5. That card is good for 3 years. So every 3 years you have to renew that card, and every year you need to purchase your license, but it's only $5.
Yeah, Charlie, you mentioned non-residents coming to Kentucky, and we certainly want to encourage non-residents who want to enjoy the resources we have here to come. One thing we'd say along those lines is that non-resident youths can hunt in Kentucky at very discounted rates, only slightly higher fees than the resident youths. Youths younger than 12 can come and hunt for free. So non-residents who are coming here to hunt can bring their youths along and have a free or a very discounted experience. It's a great opportunity here.
There is one day out there that's in June that's called Free Fishing Days, where you don't need a license. No license required, you still have to abide by the rules.
Yeah, all creel limits and all of the rules apply. But for 2 days, on the Saturday and Sunday, you can fish without a license, and I won't ask you for them.
And I've got one last question I always ask. Do you text and drive?
I don't.
No.
Brenda, you don't?
No.
You're promising?
I keep it in my purse. I don't even...
Captain?
I don't have the capability to text, so no, I don't text and drive. I leave that stuff up to my wife.
This has been a good show, and thank you all for being in. Yet it is a new year for fishing, a new year for hunting, and while this is recreation. It's still required by law for you to have the proper license, proper tags. Leave the excuses at home. Go to your Google search box and type in there Kentucky Fishing and Boating Guide and the Kentucky Hunting and Trapping Guide. These publications will tell you everything you need to know. You can read them online on your phone, or you can pick them up, a hard copy, wherever you buy your license and all your gear. Your favorite store has them, and they are free. And speaking of hunting, be sure to get your name in the hat for the elk hunt draw. The deadline is April 30th. Our time is up. This is Charlie Baglin inviting you to join us again in a week, and we will go inside outdoors again right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.